Town station. In the meantime, South Shore commuters say they're preparing for the headaches of a longer commute. Sharon Yonan Reynolds, CBC News, Montreal.
Now the news, a reminder that if you had been hoping to go swimming at the beach at Parc Jean Drapeau in Montreal today, you will have to make other plans. The beach is being closed until further notice. The Environment Ministry says the beach there has higher than normal levels of bacteriological contamination. They were found during testing that was done earlier this week. There's no word on when the beach might be able to reopen. Voters in Quebec City will be going to the polls in a by-election soon. That is because the CAQ MNA for the Jean Talon riding, Joëlle Boutin, has announced she's leaving politics at the end of the month. Now some political analysts say CAQ could face an uphill battle to hold on to that seat. Melina Levesque reports.
The CAQ is not assured at all to keep that seat.
McGill political science professor Daniel Bélan says holding on to Jean Talon could be a challenge for the CAQ. With current MNA Joëlle Boutin resigning, Premier François Legault will have 6 months to call a by-election in the riding.
It's been difficult for Legault. I think it started with this announcement about the third link.
Boutin was first elected in the former Liberal stronghold in a 2019 by-election and won again in 2022. However, Bélan says the backlash following the CAQ's cancellation of the third link tunnel could negatively impact the party's chances, and that it could potentially help other parties, like the Parti québécois and Québec solidaire.
I'm not saying they will lose that riding, but it will be quite competitive.
Meanwhile, Joëlle Boutin says she plans to devote more time to her 2 children and will be starting a job in the private sector in August. Melina Levesque, CBC News, Quebec City.
Researchers are going to be in the eastern townships today trying to figure out whether a tornado touched down earlier this week. On Tuesday, high winds swept through Saint-Alphonse-de-Granby as well as the borough of Brompton in Sherbrooke. Now, no one was hurt, but there was a significant amount of property damage. Several trees were knocked down as well in both areas. Environment Canada says winds were up around 100 kilometers an hour at times. The Northern Tornadoes Project will be sending a team from Ontario in today to determine whether or not it was actually a tornado or a microburst. Can confirm as well that 2 tornadoes touched down in Quebec last week during major storms across southern Quebec, one in Mirabel and the other in Lanaudière. And finally, Quebec's coastal waters have 2 new visitors, and they are not whales or seals. Scientists have been tracking 2 great white sharks lurking off the coast of Percé in the Gaspé region. They believe they have come here to feed and might even be related. Lauren McCallum reports.
It's a theme that can evoke terror in some, but this is no horror movie. Scientists say these 2 juvenile sharks, Jekyll and Simon, have come to Quebec to feed on fish, not humans. John Tyminski is a senior data scientist with the nonprofit organization OSearch.
My guess is that those 2 sharks are probably heading in the area because of schooling fish. Perhaps I know that there is spawning mackerel, for example, in that area at this time of year.
Tyminski says Jekyll and Simon are about 8 to 9 feet long and are anywhere from 10 to 15 years old, still young for a great white shark. He says they were first tagged within days of each other off the coast of Georgia in the United States, and his group has been following them ever since. Tyminski and other scientists believe the young male sharks might even be related.
We started wondering about kinship. Could these 2 sharks be related? As a matter of fact, we've just contacted one of our colleagues who's a geneticist, and he's going to, with a couple of muscle samples that we took from these fish, we are going to try to do some kinship analysis.
Tyminski says great white sharks can also be found off the coasts of Newfoundland, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia. He believes they could be coming north because of climate change. Lauren McCallum, CBC News, Montreal.
And that was your CBC News. It is now 8:35. The current, of course, is next. First, though, let's head back onto the roads, the traffic, and the transit. Here is Alita Paulson.
And we have a couple of more accidents on the roads that are causing traffic jams for us. 40 eastbound in the Anjou area. It's around the Bourget area. It's backing through the Anjou interchange, affecting the Metropolitan eastbound slightly, but it just actually is about 3 minutes old. If you're heading past the Anjou interchange onto the South Shore side, appears to be a fender bender bender around the 132, and just at that exit, if you're looking to take the inbound side of the LaFontaine Tunnel, clearing away the problem in the tunnel, so things are opening up there. And another accident for us that we're dealing with is on Laurentian Autoroute southbound at Salaberry, and that is in the right-hand lane. It is now backing up over the Médéric-Martin Bridge. Hopefully, though, it'll be out of the way soon. I can see that they have tow trucks on the scene now.
Thank you very much, Lita Polson. To the weather forecast from Environment Canada. In Montreal today, a mix of sun and cloud. There is a 30% chance of showers this afternoon. Expect a high around 28 degrees. Partly cloudy conditions overnight. In the Laurentians, a mix of sun and cloud. Also a chance of showers this afternoon. Risk of a thunderstorm as well. A high of 25%. So partly cloudy overnight with some shower activity.
Growth in simultaneous heat waves around the Northern Hemisphere has increased sixfold since the 1980s. We've already seen them impact Asia, North and Central America, Africa, the Middle East, and now Europe.
Hot doesn't even begin to describe some of the extreme temperatures we're seeing around the world this summer. Red alerts have hit countries like Italy, Spain, and Croatia, and even places like the state of Arizona that is used to heat are breaking records of consecutive days above 43 degrees Celsius. How are people coping? We'll speak to the United Nations Global Chief Heat Officer about how the world should be adapting to the scorching weather. That's coming up in a moment, and then...
Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Barbie.
She's kind of everywhere right now, Barbie that is. With the launch of a new movie tomorrow, the cultural icon is back in the spotlight, though maybe she never left. But with the spotlight come questions about Barbie's impact for good and for bad. We'll talk about Barbie, who she was, who she is, and where she fits in pop culture. That's in 30 minutes. Plus, Women's World Cup soccer with Canada, the Olympic gold medal champs, hitting the pitch today. But we begin with that heat wave sweeping large parts of the world right now. I'm Rosemary Barton, sitting in for Matt Galloway, and this is The Current. It is hot everywhere this summer. Much of Europe, the U.S., and Asia are dealing with record-breaking heat waves. This week, the World Meteorological Organization warned of increased risk of deaths from the heat. We'll hear from the UN's Global Chief Heat Officer in just a moment, but first to Arizona.
If you've been outside all day long and then you're wanting to go to sleep, and you're still outside and you're on concrete or asphalt, you never get a chance to cool down because the low is still 90 degrees.
To be clear, that's a low of 32 degrees Celsius. A.B. Schrabenlinder works with people experiencing homelessness in Phoenix, Arizona. The city hit a record this week, 20 straight days with a temperature reaching or exceeding 43 degrees, breaking the record set almost 50 years ago, and it is taking a toll on the city's most vulnerable.
We have a lot of individuals that have mental health challenges as well as substance abuse issues. And when they're self-medicating, it's even less obvious to them that he's having an effect. It's, I think, why there's such a concern that people may not survive.
Heat-related illnesses and injuries have spiked, including burns. Dean Scheinert works with homeless seniors in Phoenix.
Many of our members who are coming in dehydrated, some of them have some heat stroke. A few have sores on their feet because they are walking on hot pavement or sleeping on the hot pavement, so they have heat burns throughout their body.
Dr. Kevin Foster is the director of the Arizona Burn Center in Phoenix. Dr. Foster, good morning.
Good morning.
What kind of burns are you seeing at your center right now?
Summertime is always our busy time because of the hot ambient temperatures, and sunlight onto stuff makes it hot and makes contact burns really a common thing in the summertime. This summer, because the temperatures are really hot right now and direct sunlight, we're seeing lots of patients who are falling down onto concrete, pavement, asphalt, and suffering really deep burns as a result of that.
Jeez. How does it compare to previous years?
Yeah, this is something that we see pretty much every year. We expect it, but for some reason this year, the incidence of these injuries is particularly high. I mean, like twice the normal that we typically see, and it's not immediately obvious why that is.
So you mentioned pavement. What other things are people getting burned on or with?
Right, so anything that's in direct sunlight and exposed to the hot temperatures outside. So another common thing we see is, hot door handles, hot upholstery in cars, a variety of things within vehicles like the steering wheel, dashboards, seatbelt buckles, and then something that people don't think about very often, but hose water that's in a hose that's outside. Oftentimes it's very near boiling when it first comes out of the hose. So, and even if you let it run for a while, the water in Arizona does not get cold or cool. It always stays hot.
And how hot are these things? Like, how hot is the pavement? Do you have a sense?
We've tested it over the years, and it's pretty consistent that on a hot summer afternoon in Arizona, black asphalt can get 170 to 180 degrees, which is just a little bit below boiling. And hot concrete or sidewalk or other types of pavement will get to 160 to 170 degrees.
So you're well beyond being able to fry an egg on the pavement here.
Absolutely. Definitely fry an egg on a pavement.
What kind of, I'm making jokes, but what kind of shape are people in? Because these are fairly serious burns when they happen.
Yeah, so, people go down for a reason. Oftentimes it's elderly people who take a fall and can't get up, or maybe medication related or related to ongoing medical problems. We're definitely seeing an increase in people using methamphetamine that is contaminated with fentanyl going down, and we're seeing a fair number of homeless people. It tends to make these injuries really bad because people just stay down for a prolonged period of time.
Oh, right. So what kind of degree of burn are you talking about?
Almost always third-degree burn. Almost all of these patients require admission to the hospital, frequently to the intensive care unit, and almost all of them are requiring surgeries, and most of them multiple surgeries.
Wow. Do you have any specific cases that jump out to you that you've seen already this year?
Oh, well, right now I would say we've got probably 20 people in the hospital that have serious injuries from going down on hot pavement. And, yesterday and the last couple of days, we've probably seen 2 or 3 times that number of patients in our burn emergency department who we didn't have to admit. We were able to treat them as outpatients. But I think that, a typical injury is, an elderly man who goes out to get the mail and trips on a rock and falls into a rock garden and is unable to get up, and lays out there for 20 minutes. And not only does he get bad burns, but he also has heat shock because his temperature goes up. It only takes a short exposure in the afternoon sunlight and hot temperatures to get your temperature to go up way beyond the safe range.
And what about just in terms of your medical clinic seeing a heat-related illness, like put aside the burn issue, but just, as you said, people suffering from heat stroke or dehydration?
Yeah, this is something that we see very commonly, very often. It almost always accompanies these deep burns when people go down and they don't get up right away. Almost always they suffer heat shock or heat prostration, and that can be central nervous system problems, liver failure, kidney failure. So that is a problem. And then we see a fair number of patients here that don't even have cutaneous burns, but they're suffering from heat shock. And it tends to be a big problem with people who are visiting here. Most people who live in Arizona, most native Arizonans have a pretty healthy respect for hot temperatures and direct sunlight.
Sure.
We don't go outside in the middle of the afternoon. But oftentimes people who are visiting here don't realize how hot it actually is and how quickly you can get dehydrated and suffer heat shock.
Are people dying? Maybe not from the burns, but the heat shock and the other things as well?
Yeah, unfortunately, the mortality associated with this is fairly high. Most people get better, but most of the people that we admit to the burn center we expect are going to do fine. This particular disease entity seems to have a higher mortality associated with with it than you would expect for the extent or the depth of the wound. And I think that it has to do with, people suffering heat prostration and, the associated medical problems and substance abuse that goes along with it.
So, obviously, as you said, people who live there know you just don't go outside at these times of day. But to your point, there are people who don't have anywhere to go, or who maybe have to work outside, or all kinds of things. What would you like to see authorities do to try and help those people in Phoenix to deal with these kinds of extreme temperatures?
I think that most businesses do a pretty good job of taking care of their workers. They make sure that they're working in the shade as much as possible, take frequent breaks, have exposure to a place to go to cool off. Oftentimes use, water
misters,
outside, misters, and lots of hydration. But I think for homeless people, it's a problem. We do need to provide better shelters for people and a way for people to get out of the heat. And I think that it's really important that people recognize that they have to stay hydrated. And it's misleading here because, the humidity is really low and it doesn't feel quite as hot as it really is.
It's a dry heat.
Yeah. But it's also misleading.
Yeah.
And I think that, people will go out for a walk and get pretty far away and then suddenly realize, oh boy, I'm in trouble. And by that time, you are in trouble.
I know you've dealt with this for some time. I know you're accustomed to extreme temperatures, but there does seem to be something happening in the world in relation to climate change. And I just wonder whether you are concerned about how things are going to get worse over the next months and years.
Yeah, we really are because, Arizona is kind of right at the... We're kind of at the edge of tolerability. It can't get a whole lot hotter here before it becomes really intolerable. I mean, once you hit 120 degrees, that is really, really hot. It's almost impossible to go outside under those temperatures. You can't touch anything. Everything is boiling hot. So, I'm definitely concerned because we can't get a whole lot hotter and still have this be a place where people can actually live and function.
Okay, Dr. Foster, I'm in Canada, so these kinds of temperatures, we get up there, but not like this. We kind of go into the negatives in the other direction. So fascinating to hear how you're coping and trying to help people. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. It's great talking to you.
Dr. Kevin Foster is the director of the Arizona Burn Center in Phoenix. Well, record-breaking temperatures have also hit southern and eastern Europe. Parts of Italy could see highs of 48 degrees in the coming days. In Italy, Spain, and Greece, there are red alerts warning people of a very high health risk due to heat. And in Greece, multiple wildfires are raging. Eleni Marivelli is the Global Chief Heat Officer for the United Nations and the Archrock Resilience Center. She is in Athens this morning. Good morning, Eleni.
Good morning, Rosemary. It's devastating to hear Dr. Foster about Phoenix, Arizona. Devastating.
Yeah, isn't it? It's shocking, too, that these kinds of things are happening. Give me a sense of what it feels like in Athens today.
It's searingly hot. It's the second heat wave that is starting to peak these days. We had one last week that reached the low 40s, 40, 41. And now the second rolling heat wave is peaking. It will be on the weekend. It's said that we'll reach 44 degrees Celsius. And finally, there's going to be a third one next week, we just heard. As you said, there are these heat domes now on all of the northern hemisphere. If you look at it on a meteorological map, it's really shocking to see how it's all red hot.
And it's different, right? Like, this isn't something that we've seen in the past. It does seem like it's more prevalent and more extreme than past years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I keep saying if that